Good morning, students. I hope you're all doing well. I'm here to teach you the next lesson in our course, which is The Essentials of Education by Sir Richard Livingstone. If you remember, the last lesson we did was The Adventures of the Blue Carbuncle by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I hope it made you curious enough to look up more of the Sherlock Holmes stories, because they are extremely interesting. Not only do they raise your sense of humor, sharpen your wits, definitely improve your vocabulary, because the language is actually superb, but they also help you to do a bit of investigative thinking. I think all very relevant, much of learning content, and in the context of that, I would like to introduce the next lesson to you, which is, as I said, the essentials of education. Since I listed out the items which you would have benefited from in your previous lesson, I think it is essential for us to talk about education, and education, why and wherefore of education. Sir Richard Livingstone was an educationist and administrator. He was a vice chancellor in University of Ireland. This piece that we are doing today is an extract from a lecture that he delivered in the USA. I think it was the International College in a place called Springfield in Massachusetts. This is an abstract from there, and of course, as expected, since he is an educationist, he's talking about education in the modern times, and he draws a very strange kind of parallel between the choices you have. Actually, he wants to talk about quality. He says that just as confusing is the task of choosing different kinds of food items from a list given to you at a restaurant, or he mentions a cruise liner, which is a ship. You must keep in mind the fact that this essay has been written long back, and where the common mode of travel was probably sailing over the seas. He talks about a transatlantic liner which offers you nice exotic dishes to choose from, and similarly in a restaurant, and how baffling is the choice, how confusing, how crippling it. You are most of the times we are caught up trying to figure out which would be the best for us, because we want to spend our good money and in a good manner, and not only do we want to eat well, but we also want to rise ourselves from the table feeling nourished, and not having eaten a lot of just empty calories. Similarly is the task of choosing your choices, choosing your subjects when you begin your career. He says the choices that we always have are plenty. It ranges from things like subjects like Greek to music to economics and something else. So the choices are plenty. Of course, in today's time, the choices are even more baffling, because you have subjects like peace and conflict studies, you have ergonomics, you have spacecraft design, you have game design. So I'm sure it's a very baffling kind of a situation where all of us are in a fix trying to figure out what would we like to study actually. This is where the question of education comes in, the definition of education. What exactly is education meant for? Why do we study? We study because most of the times it's because our parents expect us to study. We are expected to adhere to a social behavior. We need degrees for the reason of earning a living for ourselves later on in life. So these are basic prosaic reasons for wanting to study something. Beyond that, there is the fact that you need to be educated for a different aspect of life. He talks about the choices of subjects that you have when you are entering college. Plenty of subjects. Like when you entered college, I'm sure you all had to deal with the political science, sociology, elective English, whatever you needed to choose from. Now, every subject was as alluring as the other, as tempting as the other, because every subject aims to teach you what is first rate in that subject, and that is the crux of his discussion here, because the aim of education is to help you to distinguish between what is mediocre and what is first rate. If you are studying, let's say if you're doing a course on tailoring, or you're doing a course on Punjabi, you ought to know the best way of cutting a cloth, or you ought to know what defines good Punjabi in order to study it. And every subject, every course in your curriculum aims to give you just that and nothing else. So while we are discussing this, we also need to talk about what is the requirement of education, and the fact that how do you decide what subject to choose from. You have plenty of subjects, so you can't really take on every subject, so you have to decide what are the best subjects to choose and what do you want to learn excellence in. So you have to choose among these subjects. The first subject that you want to excel at is your vocation. Vocation is the study of whatever will ensure you a livelihood, whatever will make you earn your living. Now, according to Sir Richard Livingstone, that's an area that he doesn't want to really touch upon, because he feels that the modern age is perfectly trained to turn out individuals just the right way to earn their livings, whether they are engineers, doctors, nurses, hoteliers, commerce professionals, whoever. The modern age is such that where there is commercial fulfillment required, where there is financial benefits in question, apparently everybody is very well aware. So that's an area he doesn't want to talk about. He wants to focus on areas which are related to your creative and intellectual faculties, the creative and intellectual faculties of the human brain, which are subjects like art and literature and music and architecture. He doesn't touch upon science and philosophy, because he feels to be able to judge what is first rate in science and philosophy, you need to have a certain elevated brain capacity, to be able to judge that. And an ordinary human being is not in a position to be able to distinguish between what is great and what is genius in science and philosophy, as compared to the subjects of literature, because literature you are constantly in touch with all kinds of literature. Every bookstore you go into, you find lots of books. Every we are also commonly attached to music, so we all of us have a standard opinion on music and art and architecture, because we are surrounded by buildings and structures. So we might not possess the exact technical know-how about these subjects, but then we have a common man's working knowledge about these subjects. So these are subjects which deal with the creative faculties of the human mind, and if you derive a kind of pleasure out of them, it is a necessity to know what exactly is perfect or first rate in these areas of subjects. Now we then go on to the fact that we need to know, in order to live this life, we need to know exactly how to live your life, the job of living that he calls it. To learn the first rate in the job of living your lives, it is essential for you to focus on only 3 subjects. You can't do it. First of all, it is not possible, humanly possible, for you to read up every subject, but the most 3 relevant subjects which can actually teach you something about living your lives are 3, which are literature, history and religion. He talks about religion. Actually, he wants to maintain a kind of diplomatic silence about religion, though he feels that religion is probably the best subject which can teach you the excellent ways of living your lives, because we have such noble illustrations, examples in every religion. We have such characters, such heroes that we can imbibe from, learn from. But religion is a subject which is not taught the way it ought to be taught in schools and colleges and institutes, because the way he has been taught about religion, he says it's a very miserable way of teaching religion, so I would like to keep safe. I would not like to touch upon it, though he actually at the end of the lesson he will sum up by talking about religion again. but he probably wants to be diplomatically correct. So he says, even though religion is the best subject to learn about how to live your lives, he doesn't actually want to touch upon it right at this point of time. So he goes on to history. Now history is a subject which deals with lives lived in the past. Now it's a subject which has a lot to do with the reporting of lives lived in the past. It has a lot to do with problems that have been there as past events, heroic acts and wars and violence and generous behavior, lots of things in history that you can learn from, but that's actually not narrated to you in a very personal manner. It is done in the form of report, and even though there are biographies that you can read from and learn about people who have led heroic lives that you can learn from, but unless you approach these biographies with questions, that means you ought to be able to question the person being written about, asking the person what were the reasons for his decisions in life. If he did like this, why did he do it? What kind of breeding, what kind of environment, what kind of breeding, what kind of education he was provided with, which made him reach this kind of a state. Now, unless you have that one-to-one conversation with the person that you're reading about, it is not really possible to learn from that kind of reading. The next that he comes to is literature, which he holds up as the best, because literature is a subject where you get the kind of information, because in literature, writers talk to the world through their own thoughts, through their visions, through their fancy, through their imagination, through their visions. They talk to the world. Actually, it is like they're putting their thoughts on paper. And there is no other way in which you can learn so much about humanity, because ultimately it is all about every subject that he's talked about here is a subject which deals with humanity. He says you need to learn about man from subjects which deal with humanity. If a subject even glances at a man, that subject is relevant enough for you to learn from. But we don't really need a subject which gives you just a glance to learn from, or a sidelined, squinted kind of a vision of a man's life. You need a face-to-face, full-on confrontation with man to know what man is, and that apparently is only provided by literature. So in the job of learning, he talks about how do you learn, where does one learn what is first rate? How do you learn what is first rate? Unless you are exposed to what is first rate, unless you get to see some people who are first rate, unless you know who is first rate. If you want to be the best doctor, you need to see the best doctor in your lifetime. If you want to be the best lawyer, you need to have some experience, dealing with the lawyer in order to know what to do exactly in order to become the best lawyer. Who are these people? Where shall we meet them? It is in order that we may meet them in what we call the humanities. And this is where he talks about the humanities being that one area which brings you so much in touch with the mankind. Now, if we talk about man, if we talk about literature, we need to talk about characters in literature, even historical figures for that matter, who have had the kind of sense to figure out lives in the most perfect manner. And how do they figure out life in the most perfect manner? It is only by taking long-term decisions. There is something called a bifocal vision that he talks about. He talks about a Latin phrase which says that you have to take everything. It's supposed to be sub specie aeternitatis. Sub specie aeternitatis, which means that everything with relevance to eternity. That's a Latin phrase. Interesting, because any decision that you take today, you are always tempted to take that decision with context to your immediate problem. But remember that that solution that you're trying to figure out in your immediate problem is going to have a long-lasting impact on life. So a person who has a bifocal vision, he names people like Lincoln, who have had a bifocal vision. They've been surrounded by domestic violence and war, etc. A man of great statesman qualities, but then he has always been sensible enough to take his decisions keeping the future in context, not problem solving on an immediate basis. Now, of course, all literature does not give us a portrait of human excellence, just like history does not give us a portrait of human excellence, because in history you not only read about great characters who've been capable of heroic deeds, but there have been characters in history who've very eminent, very well known, all right, maybe not known for the right reasons. There have been people like Hitler, Bismarck, Napoleon, Lenin, all very stately characters, but then there have been some lacunae somewhere, some flaws somewhere. Similarly, in writing literature also, you have to remember that the writer has an ideological stance that he takes, and that ideological stance need not be the best for humanity. So according to Richard Livingstone, every writer is good, but there are some writers who have the noblest vision. They have a vision for the future. They have their concern is with humanity. Basically, their concern is with humanity. Merely from an academic point of view, merely as a matter of curiosity, he says, it is natural to wish to know what is first rate, but also it has its practical uses for the conduct of our own lives. I do not say that to know the first rate is the same thing as to achieve it. Very relevant. It is one thing to know, it is one thing to read about the most ideal conduct, the most ideal responses to situations, the most ideal problem solving methods, but it is another to follow it. There is a Roman poet, he has said that I know what is the best, I approve of it, but I follow the worst. Similarly, there is Saint Paul who says, when I do good, evil is present with me. So, being aware of goodness in society, in life, is not all. Being aware and to try and put it into practice is what is important. There is Disraeli, Benjamin Disraeli, one time Prime Minister of England, who has said, nurture your mind with great thoughts. To believe in the heroic makes heroes. So, your thinking ought to be that expansive. Your thinking should be that great. You should be able to distinguish between great lives and mediocre lives and excellent lives, and try to put that into practice. And he sums up by talking about this line of the church, Sursum Corda, lift up your hearts. Lift up your hearts, because it is just not possible for us to have ideological figures ahead of us for us to follow blindly. We are all ordinary people, we are all of average intelligence, we are all ordinary people living ordinary lives. How else can we aspire to live lives of heroic temperament, heroic stature? What we can do is we can raise ourselves on the shoulders of those who have walked on higher levels. This is one of the ways. By reading about these great characters, we can try to elevate ourselves, enhance our own information, enhance our own ideological stance, think differently, open up your minds, sub specie aeternitatis, which means every decision, every problem solving behavior of yours today has relevance to eternity, to what is there in the future. So if you do not focus on the immediate and think of the greater things of life, I'm sure you're going to lead yourselves towards the first rate in the job of living that he has focused on in this book essay. I told you that he sums it up by talking about religion again. Religion is the greatest instrument for raising us, because if you know, every religion practically says the same thing. And how is it possible that even the most illiterate, even the most uninitiated, even the most ignorant of people so quickly lap up what is taught to them through sermons, through lectures, through what is called that the sermons that we generally listen to. Why is it so easy for people to understand what is taught to them by using religious modes? That means there is something inherently there in human beings which is ready to take in positive learning. So even though religion is something that he doesn't wish to touch upon in order to make it one of the ways by which you can perfect your ways of living your lives, but he sums up the entire essay by talking about religion, because he says religion is understood by the most common of men. So how easy it is for you to adapt to the certain principles and ideals which are propagated through religion. The right ways of, if you misconstrue what is there in religion, that's where you mess up things. But enlarge our minds and to show us what is great in human personality, you have to learn to distinguish between what is goodness and what is greatness. You have to draw parallels in your life between what is doable and what is impractical. Education which neglects this aspect of your lives is incomplete and not really adequate preparation for life. Thank you. This is the end of the lesson, The Essentials of Education. I hope you will do a more thorough reading of it and ask me a few questions on this. Thank you.